Hey, everybody. So it is a Friday night, February 7th, 2025. Here in the Boston area, it's about 10:20. I just wanted to come on and make a probably not too long of a video, just so much on my mind about all the craziness going on. I've been posting a lot on TikTok, particularly about USAID stuff. I'm not sure why I got that obsessed with it because I don't have a direct connection with USAID, but seeing the dismantling of it and understanding how important it is to the security of the United States and the things it does around the world, it's just really got me riled up. And also just seeing like all these stupid people who are posting stuff about little piece. Anyway, it's just crazy. So I'm just going to focus on talking about actual facts of what's done. How about that? Imagine that concept, right? Anyway, yeah. So this video isn't even necessarily about one topic in particular. It's more to just kind of talk about how I'm feeling about what's going on and maybe any support guidance that I can offer information that people might find helpful. So I guess I'd start with this. The website that you're looking at is thanks to this guy who I'm calling a hero. Brian Moore is his name, and he has he's created a tool so that if you go to any government website, this one's usaid.gov, and you add wayback.com at the end, it will take you to the archive site. Because if you go on the USAID site now, there's nothing there except this notice to USAID employees about it being dismantled. And who knows? I mean, there's probably I see it's so hard to say. Like I would have never thought of this before. I would always say, well, there's always archives of past stuff, but with this administration, like who knows? So thank you, Brian Moore, for creating this tool. So like with this one, you would put in usaid.gov wayback.com. So usaid.gov wayback.com. And you can do it for any government agency. I also did it with the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, and it also worked. So it takes you to their past things. So, but yeah, let's talk a little bit about why does USAID matter? And what about all these people who are going, well, there's all this money, all our taxpayer dollars being spent in all these countries for all these people, and they're not Americans, and that money could be better put toward Americans, etc. Okay, well, I think for the broader context, I would start with the fact that USAID is not a partisan organization in any way, shape, or form. Since its original founding, it has always been in existence. And regardless of the administration that comes in and whether they're Democrat or Republican, it's considered a very well respected and very important organization to support the federal government. If a when a new president comes in, they typically would hire a new person to run the organization, and they would make changes to some of the programs and even their priorities based on the goals of their administration. That's very natural in how governance works, combined with politics. Whoever's elected, that's fine. But it's not dismantled. And here's the thing, there are consequences to everything that we do. So USAID is widely known as having an extremely good return on investment. From things I've been reading and hearing the last few days, every dollar invested in USAID provides approximately $7 in return or value to the United States. So people can go through and pick out specific little programs that they want to complain and whine about. That's fine. But in the grand scheme of things, the truth is that the return on investment's amazing. Okay. It also provides things that you and I take for granted, but people in developing countries often don't aren't able to take for granted. So I'll also say for people who are complaining about things being provided in some of these countries, if this is true, you're a callous asshole, and I have no respect for you. Because do you really want babies to be starving to death? Do you want children who were born with HIV to not get their medication, and then that turns into AIDS and they die at the age of 7? If that's what you want, and you want people to like die of malaria and stuff, if that's true, then whatever. But then you're an asshole. So that's just kind of the basic stuff of how of and that's just a couple things that USAID does to help. It's an amazing organization that way. You may have been hearing people talk the last few weeks about PEPFAR, which is AIDS related stuff, which actually I think was started in the George W. Bush administration. It might have even been started before that. I should know that being in public health, but it's been a long time. But anyway, the point is it's a really good program, and there's no Republican presidents who would have ever gotten rid of it because there's no reason to get rid of it because it makes a huge difference. So now let's talk about the public health issues around USAID. Well, for one thing, we typically have the United States typically has infectious disease warning systems set up in several countries so that we can get the information about when potential outbreaks are occurring. And I would fight to near the death arguing with someone that one of the main reasons that we did not have a large outbreak of Ebola in 2015 was due to the existence of USAID because of the help that was provided in the countries that had high rates of Ebola, number one, because of the fact that the medicines and the medical care and the general health and the health education and the prevention related things in those countries helped slow the spread of Ebola because of the fact that we knew where Ebola was and we're helping to contain it with the help of like people from USAID and other agencies as well. All of those efforts helped keep it contained. Also, public health surveillance. If we don't know what's going on, then we can't control it, and we are much more likely to be impacted by it. If we know where all the cases are, we can prevent, for example, people from, or we'll know when they try to come into the country. In fact, I can remember back in 2015 when all that was happening. I used to write these blog articles because I was so annoyed with it was one of the Republican congresswomen at the time, and I was just like, I cannot stand her because she doesn't know what she's talking about. She was trying to get Congress to do some kind of travel ban from these countries, and you're like, and see, if you understand public health, you know that a travel ban is the worst thing you can do, because if you do a travel ban, what'll happen is people will find other ways to get into the country. So they were just doing it because she was stupid, and she was like, "Oh, we got to get these people out." And it's like, I mean, if that worked, that might be okay, but it doesn't work. It's better to be able to have controls and know what's going on. So, like if somebody was flying from a country where there was an outbreak, you would have much stronger surveillance so that before they could get off the plane, they would be tested, et cetera. Anyway, it's public health surveillance 101. We've been doing it for well over 100 years. It's well proven. It works. It's not that complicated, and it works. So anyway, so these are all and these are things that the average person doesn't really know about. And you don't really need to know about them because there's systems in place that protect you even when you don't know it. Kind of like the military. There's all kinds of stuff that goes on with the military I know nothing about, but I know that they're doing stuff that protects me, and I'm okay with that. I was listening to Kamala Harris's memoir the other day. I've been listening to her book, and she was talking about, she was on the, I think it was like the Intelligence Committee when she was a senator, and talking about the number of like attempted hacks on the United States. And it was literally like, I think it was over 1,000, like 1,600 a minute or something. Anyway, the number, what it was just an insane number that nobody would have any concept of, right? But so there's these systems in place to help mitigate that people don't know about. But if they're uninformed or they're just caught up in their, oh, I don't want my tax dollars going for that, then, they're just putting themselves at risk, or they're putting our country at risk, and they don't know what they're talking about. So that's kind of my point here. Public health surveillance is huge. And if we don't know what's going on in certain countries, it's going to make our country less safe because we're not going to be able to know what's going on. And public health information is always better. It's better to know what's going on because then you can know how to deal with it, right? Okay, then there's the whole just helping with the overall security of the United States because countries that we help tend to have a better relationship with the United States and have more goodwill feelings toward us. So people there are less likely to launch terrorist attacks against us. I was watching something the other day. I did not know this. This is when George W. Bush was president, and the administrator of USAID at that time was a very conservative Republican. And he was telling the story of how when the big tsunami hit in Indonesia, I believe that was in 2004. If I'm wrong, somebody can correct me, but 2004, 2006. It's the one that happened, I think, the day after Christmas. I can remember because I remember being in Southern Illinois visiting family, and it was so terrible. So that tsunami that killed tons of people in Indonesia, the disaster response was largely led by the United States, USAID, working in collaboration with the military, and USAID and the military worked together on lots of things. So he was telling the story of how Indonesia is a majority Muslim country, and at that time, it liked Osama bin Laden a lot. So the ratings, like the survey popularity ratings, were 27% of the population approved of the United States, and 58, 57 or 58% approved of Osama bin Laden. But shortly after the disaster response, I don't know the exact time, but I think he said something like 3 months or so after the disaster response and all the help that was given by the United States to Indonesia in their time of need, the survey results of approval completely shifted so that the United States now had an approval rate of 60 something percent, and Osama bin Laden only had an approval rate of 27%. In fact, he's talked about how Osama bin Laden was really angry about this. So that's just one example, but it shows, looking at the bigger picture, how important it is for us to have a presence in places like this because it helps with our overall security. Um, USAID does help. It helps promote democracy and freedom of speech and all that kind of stuff. So, there's times where there might be a country that's in a really bad situation, and they'll start like teaching young people, right? There might be like some 12-year-old girl in Zimbabwe, right? And she joins some kind of like a training program with USAID and learns about democracy and learns about governance and learns about infrastructure and becomes a leader. And then 20 years later, maybe she becomes a member of parliament in a country that used to be a dictatorship and has become more democratic. I mean, there's so many amazing things that can happen that USAID does that. And again, these are all reasons that it matters and it's important. And the other side of that, the consequence if we don't, is that other countries will go in and do that. We have a very strong competitive advantage in the world, partially because of the fact that USAID has this huge presence in the world. And if we don't do that, other countries like China will come in and try to do that. And then they'll just have more goodwill from people around the world. So, and again, it's a free country. People can have what opinions they want, but I have no doubt that the world that we live in is much safer because of the existence of USAID, and the attempt to dismantle it has nothing to do with government efficiency or anything rational. In fact, it probably has to do with Elon Musk either wanting vengeance on USAID, because I think he also has contracts with them, which is hilarious that he's the one who's overseeing this, and all these people are like, "Oh, that's fine, let him do his job." Whatever. Could we say conflict of interest? Um, that's part of it, and then he has a very difficult, still say strained relationship with China. So he probably wants USAID in the US to fail so he can rebuild his relationship with China. Anyway, that's just my opinion. But yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of where we are with the whole USAID thing. And I guess my point is just to talk about how in general, we live in a very interconnected society, whether we like it or not. That's the reality. So I'm going to continue to just share information like this and educate people on why these kind of things are important. And this is part of my, opposition, not my nonviolent resistance to what's going on in the United States. And I'll keep sharing information and motivating people to, do what you can to like don't comply, don't go along, protest, share your voice, whatever. I saw the most hilarious TikTok earlier. It was this lady, and she said her strategy is she says, go buy a bag of chips. This is so funny. Go buy a bag of like potato chips or corn, like the loudest bag you can find, and go to like a local like city council meeting. And whenever like the fascist leaning person starts to talk, just like make a lot of noise with the bag. And she went to a meeting and did. She said this lady who's like, kind of like super fascist. Every time the lady would start to talk, she would make noise with the bag, and the lady got all discombobulated and it messed her up. So I totally support anything people need and want to do to mess this up, And like, I'm normally not a petty person. I like big picture, I like infrastructure, I love collaboration. I want everyone to work together. But you know what? That's not where we are right now. It ain't where we are. So when we're in that kind of world, that stuff's great. But listen, democracy matters. Our country matters, and we got to do whatever we can do to protect it. And if we have to mess shit up and like do even silly things like taking a bag of potato chips to a counselor's meeting and making noise, I'm all for it. Whatever petty stuff you got to do to shut that shit down, you go right ahead. Anyway, okay. So I think I'll stop there. Like I said, I just felt like providing some context about the importance of USAID, and I'll be back soon with some more videos on who knows what. I mean, this stuff's just crazy. So, all right. I hope everybody has a great evening. Keep the faith, do what you can, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.